Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Resident Evil T-Veronica X. In the last part we left Rockport Island as Chris and made our way back to Antarctica, and now it's time for us to grab the valve handle we left here as Claire several parts back, because we're going to need this for other stuff now. To be very careful of zombies like this in the ice rooms in Antarctica as Chris. As well, you can instantly kill the zombies with the shotgun. If you try to run away from them at weird angles sometimes, a baby spider, I think it's meant to be, will burst out of their chest like it's, well, it's like it's alien. Like the baby xenomorphs. And I don't know exactly what causes that to happen. It just sort of does from certain ones. In particular, I know in that group of zombies, the one that's right next to the camera, after that cutscene can have it happen. But I think it can only happen to certain zombies, not every zombie here in the Antarctic base. And I want to say the baby spiders might also be able to poison you, but don't quote me on that, because I seldom get hit by them outside of that one. That said, now we want to head back towards where we turned the valves back into an octagon as Claire, as well. We can't use the machine again because we can't really add material to it. There's now more zombies in here, but since the explosion and all that shit happened here, we can now enter this little cage where the one zombie was to grab ourselves this Duralumin case, as well as some shotgun ammo. Now, if you don't have the empty extinguisher because you left it back at Rockport Island in like one of the safety cases or something like that, not so much the item boxes, you don't need to come out of the way to get this Duralumin case. It's not going to be useful to you whatsoever. But if you do have the extinguisher, grab it, because what's in it's pretty important. Well, that bodes well. More on whatever that is later. Because now we can head beyond where we could as Claire, thanks to the frozen ice. And this allows us to access a whole new section of this area.
What? He's here?
I guess I technically slightly spoiled this last part, but yeah, Wesker is here, as are Seekers and Hunters. Though, I think whenever you get spotted by a Seeker, the Hunter it spawns is almost always one of the non-poison variants. Just be careful of the same. Shotgun takes them out in about 3 to 5 shots, depends on how close you are, because the shotgun is, of course, like a real-life shotgun, slightly less effective at longer ranges. But now for this room, press this button. You can read it on the barrel, but this barrel here is an extinguishant. It should be used as a fire extinguisher. We can now refill the fire extinguisher we've had since the start of the game, basically. And we can now use it again on fire. And if we head down this elevator, the very fire I'm talking about can be found. This is the room where we got the assault rifle as Claire. But after you power on the sorter in the central room, this fire gets lit because I think a cable hits a gas canister or something like that, and you can't get beyond here unless you have the extinguisher. So if you don't have it, you can't grab what's back here, which is either the assault rifle, the handgun bullets from the locker in the back we still need to explode, or most importantly, the Magnum. Instant kill on basically every normal enemy, extremely high damage on boss fights. Don't waste its ammo on basically any normal enemy in the game, because it's very scarce in this one. What's not so scarce, as I brought up before, is several boxes of handgun ammo. By and large, consider the Magnum like the bowgun powder, only really use it against boss fights. And that's if you know a boss fight's coming. I'd recommend just putting it and any ammo you find for it in the item box until you're absolutely certain you want to use it. Because it is precious. But yeah, if you didn't grab the assault rifle as Claire, I believe you could also grab it as Chris. I just always grab it as Claire because it's more useful for the end of her scenario into the beginning of Chris's. And now the extinguisher's out of our inventory, so we never need to worry about that again. I want to say that might be the most missable Magnum in the series. Like, the only one that feels that out of the way and hidden otherwise is probably remakes, and I forget how you get the one in Resident Evil 0, so that it could be that one. Also, be careful in that hallway, because there's 2 Seekers going at once. What I tend to find is useful in avoiding them is wait for them to make a little mechanical sound, which is them shutting down and then restarting their movement. As at that point, usually their vision cone goes down, and you can just get right past them. Sometimes it's a little bit of a tight squeeze, but you don't have to worry too much. Time for one of my least favorite hallways in the game, just because of how many times we end up going through it. It's not really annoying, although I think there are like 8 zombies in here on your first time through. We mostly just come through it a lot, and that's why I don't like it. Now, I entered that room and immediately left because I realized I should grab the herbs and take care of the zombies that are in this hallway before going into that safe room there. Just to help keep my inventory space a little more streamlined. Now, at this point in the game, you're going to be getting a lot more blue herbs than than red herbs, and it's to the point where I think there's only like 3 or 4 red herbs left in the game, if even. So getting a full combo herb is surprisingly hard at this point in the game. If you're like me and you're not using too many first aid sprays, you're probably just putting those in your not your first aid box, your item box, and realizing, man, I have like 9 of them. I have a lot of healing, but I don't want to use it. That's part of why I'm glad, if memory serves, moving forward in the series, starting with Resident Evil 4. First aid sprays don't impact your ranking whatsoever. Partially because, especially like Resident Evil 5, you get ranked on every chapter. But it's more so about the lack of deaths and how fast you do it in those games onwards, if memory serves. And here, we got an electricity connecting device. There's a hollow shaped in the shape of an octagon. Guess why we went to go get that valve at the start of the part. That doesn't turn the power on, though. You have to come over to the switchboard and move the lever. The amount of times I forget to do that, go to the next door, realize, oh, right, and then backtrack here in my playthroughs is kind of ridiculous. I often forget to do that. Now that the power's on, though, there are several doors you wouldn't be able to enter otherwise in this sector of the Antarctica base we can now actively go through, meaning we more or less have full reign of the Chris section, barring some locked doors. With that said, I forget what you really want in terms of items. You're definitely going to want, like, the shotgun still moving forward, because, again, with the amount of ammo we have for it at this point, it's going to be plenty. Maybe use the handgun if you have enough ammo for it, like I do, and you just really don't need to have anything else in your inventory. And I think that's it for key items, or do you also want the paperweight? I think I'm waiting a little bit before getting the paperweight now that I think about it. I also could just be fusing these herbs and then going to get it, so I don't quite remember. I recorded this like a month and a half ago at this point. That's part of the flaw with how I currently do LPs, is I record 3 games, and then edit them and commentate on them in order. So, like, I got this, Resident Evil Gaiden, and Silent Hill all done recording-wise in like 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then got the commentary for them all done in that span again. So sometimes it's hard to remember things. Alright, though, we did get the paperweight. We're gonna need that for a puzzle coming up, so make sure you grab that. If you don't have that yet, go get it. Though, admittedly, something I do like about the Antarctic-based section for both characters, it's relatively constrained enough compared to Rockport Island that figuring out where you need to go with what's a little more straightforward, and, well, this room looks familiar. Is 4 years soon enough to do a nostalgia pull like this? Mind you, I say that, but Kirby did that as soon as his second game, more or less, although actually I forget if it's the second or third game. I forget where Adventure released in relation to the later Dreamland games. And like Resident Evil 1, the statue even has the map of this portion of the facility in it, but there's no stepladder to get up to it. But thankfully there's a convenient crack in the floor over here we need to push it over to in order to get it to there. Pushing this can be a little precise, just push it to the wall and then up. Don't try any other combo really, because otherwise it'll be a bit finicky. And now we can get the map of the lab. Now, while this place is very much based off the Spencer estate and looks right here, There are some differences immediately. For instance, back here where I think one of the costume keys could take you in, like, Remake or something. I forget the exact purpose of this area in the original Resident Evil, outside maybe, like, some herbs. The tiger statue in the dispenser stays here instead, and it has a blue and red gem. If we remove it, it works on electric power, so we can't get both items at once. But we can grab the socket here, then put the jewel back. The socket, if you investigate it, has a cube-shaped back with an octagonal hole in the front. Given how little octagons have come up in this game, you can probably guess we have to combine that with the valve to use it somewhere else. Bit weird they'd have a socket for that anyway, but maybe it's more so an adaptation thing. But if you remove the red gem, we get some magnum ammo, which is incredibly important. And we'll just replace the gem there for now, and come back to this tiger statue later, because we might need those gems for something. Call it a hunch. And now time to head to one of my least favorite rooms in the series. If you're incredibly made weak by the sight of insects, if you're afraid of them, be careful here. That's a gigantic anthill. But we also have a wing object here. We're gonna need a lot of those in order to beat the game. Now, the ants in here are weird in that they have chip damage like nothing else. But they also die if you step on them. I'm not sure if they have an active hitbox or if they have an active attack. Sometimes it just feels like they hit you because they hit you. We want to head this direction before heading the other direction, though, as well. The other direction has some items for us, as well as another file. The main thing you need to do in this area is this way. This is why we need the paperweight, even. Well, this room looks a little familiar. Hello, end of disc 1 cut. Well, end of Claire scenario cutscene, rather. Now, we want to head over into this corner right here, which I often missed in my early playthroughs, for a file. Virus Research Report. Work continues on the T-Veronica virus, which I extracted from the Queen Ants. The more research I conduct on it, the more I am impressed by how much potential it has. I have finally implanted the virus into my own body, and discovered how to utilize its power. I'll avoid making the mistake that I made on my father. I'll suppress the activity of the virus at an ultra-low temperature so that my cells will change slowly. My calculations indicate that it will take 15 years before my body will gain immunity and be able to coexist with the virus. Until then, I have no choice but to trust the capsule that I will be in to that inept but loyal soldier ant who is my brother. For me to obtain unlimited power, some risks need to be taken. When I awaken, I will be the Queen, and the T-Veronica virus will be unleashed upon the entire world by my children. Every last creature on Earth will exist to serve me. At that time, the world will achieve the perfect ecosystem, just like the anthill, but on a much grander scale. Alexia Ashford. T-Veronica is not the greatest name for a virus, but it's at least better than the one from Dead Aim, which is the TG virus, I believe, which is literally T plus G. Something's written on it. As twins, Alexia and I are like two sides of a coin. A design is carved under the name Alexia. Heart, spade, AA, crown. There's a button with a design. Push the button? Not quite yet. This is where the paperweight comes in. Two sides of a coin in this case is literal. Whatever's on the opposite side of a signature that he just talked about there, we need to press. So, if Alexia was that heart, spade, AA, crown, we need to put whatever opposite on the paperweight, which I believe is AA, crown, heart, spade, from memory? Yes. And then G, a giant cube. I wonder if we put the paperweight in there. And that ends the puzzle in this area. Not the most subtle burial, Alexia, but oh well, he's already dead, so what does it matter? Now, the reason we went here to find Alfred is his ring. You might remember he talked in a note last part about needing 3 proofs that prove their lineage in the Ashford family. On his ring is one such proof. Alfred's jewel. We need to find the 2 other ones in order to access a room somewhere here in the Antarctic base. Now, the T-Veronica virus serves a little bit of a gameplay purpose as well. You might remember during the Nosferatu fight, I said that the BOW gas rounds basically do no damage to him outside of the initial impact. That's because the BOW gas rounds target only the T-virus cells, not T-Veronica virus. A couple of boss fights also have that as well in the game, so BOW gas rounds are just not as important in the second half as they are in the first half. Use them against the Tyrant and maybe a Hunter, and that's it. But now we've come to this room, which has the research report on the Queen Ant. After discovering the remains of an ancient virus within the genes of a queen ant, I've been concentrating on the research of ants. The ecosystem of the ants seems truly ideal to me. There's one queen ant in each anthill, and the soldier and worker ants are the queen's slaves. They dedicate their lives to the queen. The death of the queen ant means the doom of the entire anthill. However, the soldier and worker ants can be easily replaced as long as the queen ant is alive. This is exactly the same relationship between myself and the other ignorant masses. I have succeeded in creating an ideal virus by implanting the queen ant's gene into the mother virus that Spencer found. I used my otherwise useless father as a test subject. However, as I expected, the virus caused a rapid change in his cells, triggering the complete destruction of his brain cells and body flesh. Furthermore, a special type of poison gas was generated inside his body that the blue herb had no effect against. Because of this, I created an antidote in case of emergency, and stored it inside the weapon chemical warehouse on the second basement floor. I have decided to name this virus an unimaginable potential, the T-Veronica virus. When I find out how I can utilize the power of this wonderful virus, my great research will finally be complete. Alexia Ashford. And that's highlighting the potential side quest I've avoided by not getting hit with the poison gas back during the Nosferatu fight. Also, I'm not sure if there was a complete destruction of his brain. It definitely seemed like the moment that Alfred potentially fell to his death, although the gunshot definitely still had something to do to that, Nosferatu definitely got angered, although that may have been the T-Veronica and his cells noticing something's wrong anyway, not so much the body itself. Now, you can light the lamp in here to find these herbs a bit more easily, and there is a side room here that has some ammo in it, namely I think some handgun ammo and some shotgun shells. But I just don't think that these three zombies are worth dealing with for the amount of ammo you'd get out of it, even with the amount of shotgun ammo I have at this point, so I'd recommend just leaving it there. Only grab that if you're going for a completionist item playthrough, which honestly I don't really see much of a point of in a Resident Evil game. Because Resident Evil never really graded you on the amount of items you got in a campaign. Silent Hill did, which meant it was more important there, but in Resi, not so much. In fact, with how post-game now works for Resident Evil in, namely the Resident Evil 3 remake, and I think the Resident Evil 2 remake did this as well. Like, the entire point is you can get key items through the post-game store and use them and just have them in your inventory to ignore certain parts of the game, period, meaning you can just kind of blitz through it at a completely different pace, so it's kind of evolved in the opposite direction to be more so about streamlining rather than grabbing everything. Now, gaining the Alfred Jewel is the main reason we went that way for now, because we're going to need to get that eventually anyway, but now that we have it, we can go a completely different direction in the Antarctica base to have some other events happen and grab some other key items. Namely, I think the moment that you've activated that entire cutscene there in that area, the next cutscene spawns in an earlier portion of the base, so we might as well head that direction anyway. Big part with this part of the game, just make sure you have at least like 3 to 5 inventory slots open at a time. You could theoretically keep the wing objects into your inventory for the rest of the game, just to help save time. The big thing I want, though, is I want the valve handle so we can combine it with the socket to get the square valve handle. I didn't show off the particular place we need to use that earlier in the video, but in the room where we got the extinguishant back into the extinguisher, there's a little lift you can ride up to a second level in that room, and that would lead you to a square valve handle that you can investigate but not actively use the octagonal valve on. That is part of the problem with how I tend to do it Resident Evil games, is I'll only show off a keyhole if it's in the room where I get the key anyway. The main thing I try to do is show you why we do a puzzle, in most cases. But with how Code Veronica's structured, due to the more linear sub-areas that I talked about throughout the entire Claire half of the game, more or less, it's a bit harder to do that in this game because the key is usually halfway across the map. The main reason we want to use this square handle here, though, is that there's water in that tank next to it, but you can clearly see, as we saw a moment ago, there's a glimmer in this place. So let's use the square valve handle here, because we need to do neither of those things, but we need something in there anyway. I believe grabbing this key in particular is actually what spawns the cutscene I was thinking about, not going to get the Alfred Jewel. Surprise Hunter. Man, they really like redoing that liquor scare from the interrogation room in Resi 2. I will say, though, that scare in that game is probably the one that gets me every single time, only because I forget how loud it is. Especially because when I played a lot of Resident Evil 2 as a teenager, I always played it on my PSP with headphones in, so I would have that shit like max volume and then no longer have eardrums. But with that, now that I have the crane key, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 15, we're going to go use that crane key where it needs to be used. See you guys then.